Hi, this is Starkey Sowers. Welcome again to another Plus Program training series. Today's topic, gluten and gluten-free diets. Well, welcome again to another training series. And what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about gluten. And you might be thinking, oh my gosh, what is the deal with gluten? It seems like every time I turn around, there's something about gluten-free or gluten this or anti-gluten. What in the world is going on? Well, first of all, 30% of Americans literally are on some type of gluten restriction or gluten-free diet. So that means billions and millions of individuals are literally just looking at what in the world am I doing having gluten in my diet? Well, is it bad? Is it not? So that's some of the things that we're going to cover. So first of all, you might be thinking, what is gluten? So gluten is a protein and is typically found from wheat. So what kind of substances would that be? So obviously wheat would be the number one culprit. But there's also like a whole little family of wheat type products. Number one, there's wheat. Number two, there's barley. Number three, there's rye. There's also triticale. And in some situations, a lot of individuals will say oats have gluten in as well. So the thing about oats that becomes so critical is oftentimes gluten type products are processed with oats. And so there's kind of what we call a cross-contamination where the oats will pick it up. So if you're one that's gluten-free or wants to be gluten-free and is real sensitive, you might want to consider looking for gluten-free type oat products that guarantee that there's no gluten in it. All right, so what's the big deal with gluten? You might be thinking, oh my gosh, what's the problem with gluten? So number one, there's what we call celiac or celiac sprue, used to be the old term for celiac. And there's a celiac disease foundation, and they've literally gone out and educated a lot of people about gluten and what it does and what it doesn't do. So what is celiac? Celiac literally is an immune response. Every time certain individuals that have celiac, they actually have an immune response to any type of gluten products that they might consume. So what does this mean? So let's say they eat something that's got gluten in it. The immune system responds specifically in the gastrointestinal tract, and it literally just attacks the digestive system. And so what it does is it causes all sorts of different types of complications, including things like ulcerative colitis, irritable bowel syndrome, constipation, diarrhea, all sorts of flu symptoms, and there's a whole myriad of other different things that go with it. It's a very serious complication. About 1% to roughly about 3% of the individuals in the United States actually have this, and typically these individuals are diagnosed at an early age. What's unique about this, though, some individuals have a tendency to maybe lose the symptoms as they go through their 20s and then regain them later on in life, like in their 30s and 40s. So once again, very genetically maybe altered situation that causes this, and very, very strong complications and very strong reactions to any type of wheat products. All right, there also is what we call gluten intolerances. And in that category, there's what we call gluten-sensitive individuals. About 6% of the US population is gluten-sensitive. So what does that mean? Well, it means when you eat gluten products, maybe your digestive system doesn't necessarily feel as good. You might get little cramps or abdominal pains or maybe a little bit of gas, bloating, things of that nature. So you could also be what we call gluten reactive. And those individuals, about 10% of the population, again, as well, ends up having a situation where every time they eat gluten or gluten products, they have a reaction and their body reacts in a certain way. Digestive systems are the most common situations. And a lot of these symptoms that they have maybe kind of mirror or kind of look like a lot of the celiac situations, making it a little difficult maybe to distinguish between those two situations. And finally, there's also gluten allergies. Individuals that have allergies to glutens typically will have maybe skin rashes, or they might be in a situation where they have like hives or things of that nature. And finally, you also might get headaches as well as all the digestive things that go with it. So you might be thinking, oh my gosh, how in the world would I know? Well, when you look at a couple different things, we notice a couple things. You can use what we call testing. Your medical doctor needs to get involved. If you really think you've got a problem, you want to go see your medical doctor. Number one, you can do what we call like a blood test, and they can check for certain types of immunoglobulin levels to see if, wow, there's something going on in here. Your immune system's attacking something. We need to dig into it. They also might do what we call a patch test. And in a patch test, they kind of prick your skin and they put all sorts of different types of foods on there. And ultimately, what happens if there's a reaction on the skin, then they know, okay, we've got a sensitivity or an allergy to this particular food, so maybe they want to dig a little bit further. A lot of you guys might be thinking, well, you know, I feel a little bit different, or maybe I'm thinking I feel a little bit different. So what if I just want to, just consider not using gluten, or maybe just know a little bit more about it? Well, one of the things you might want to consider doing is what we call a gluten or just a food sensitivity test. And in a situation like that, what you do is you kind of maybe stay away from gluten for a day or two, and then you kind of reintroduce it back into the diet, and then kind of check the symptoms. Wow, gas, bloating, 0 to 5 is a little bit more or a little bit worse when I eat gluten, things of that nature. Maybe kind of do a little bit of self-diagnosis. Once again, this would be in a situation where you know it's not a traumatic situation that's going on. So what this would do is like maybe help you make that decision. You might be thinking, well, I do want to go gluten-free. I'm thinking about not having gluten in the diet, and I'm thinking, well, that might be a good consideration. How would I go about doing that? Well, I'm going to bait you a little bit. What you got to do is you're going to have to watch part number 2. In part number 2, we're going to go a little bit through the foods that have gluten in them, as well as foods that don't, and kind of give you a checklist of what you can do to maybe avoid gluten. So we appreciate you watching session number 1, but we baited you for session number 2. And this is Starkey Sowers thanking you again for watching another Plus Program training series.